Hello, Devlin Bishop here with you, and welcome to another edition of Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. And I am back with a lot of things to talk about, because if I didn't, I might as well just pack it in. But lucky for you, I always have something to talk about, or there's always something that comes up that I want to talk about. Today I'm going to start with a segment on something I really absolutely have a passion for. It is Hamilton, Ontario, where I live. I absolutely love this city, and I love to try to promote it as many ways I can, show people sides they might not see. I just love running with it and letting people know just how much I love this amazing city. It always gets kind of looped in because of the fact that, a lot of people trash it. They think it's dirty, crime-filled, and, every city has that, let's be honest. Yes, Hamilton gets a bad rep, but the truth of the matter is if you haven't looked around lately, yes, there's some aspects of the city that are a little rough around the edges, but you can find that in any city. But honestly, Hamilton is growing, and it's probably become one of the most, amazing cities for the arts. Whether you're a musician or a painter, an artist, or any kind of comedian, anything. There's a lot more opportunities than once was. Theater, just everywhere. Anyhow, so I love Hamilton, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that love. Now, I came to Hamilton in 1975. 40 years ago. That's when we first moved here. What happened was my father was in the military and he kind of moved around a lot. My brothers remember that a little bit more. We lived in Kingston, we lived in Pembroke, we lived in Germany for a little while too. But when my father finally decided to leave from the military, he decided he was going to come to Hamilton because his mother lived here. And so we bought a house, and our first place we lived was on West Avenue, which is pretty much right near, I want to say Wellington. It's right where the downtown area starts. We were right across the street from a funeral home that's still there. And that was our first home here in Hamilton, and we lived there for about a year. My mother actually really liked it. It was a great old house. It's still there. Literally, my mother was, I love my mother, but my mother was a nosy sort, and we'd always sit our chairs out on the porch and watch all the happenings, because believe it or not, that funeral home had a lot going on. There were lots of fights, lots of arrests, and a lot of, what's a nice way of putting it? There was a lot of screwing that went on there as soon as the night would come. And we'd always have enjoyment to figure out what was going to happen tonight. After West Avenue, we moved to a neighborhood, Fife Street, which was a couple of blocks from Ivor Wynne Stadium, just off Sherman. Probably one of the best places to grow up. I have so many great memories of Fife Street. It'll be something you probably hear me talk about very fondly in shows to come. I had an amazing group of kids and families, and we just all had so much fun together. Then we moved a couple blocks to Cannon Street, which you don't think is such a big deal, because you think, I can still walk to my friends. But it's amazing how even a couple of blocks can change your life. We lived on Cannon Street. We were just by Lottridge and diagonal to Ivor Wynne Stadium, which was absolutely amazing because whenever the Ticats would play or they'd have a celebration like Festa Italia used to have their fireworks and stuff, we'd always sit on our porch and say hi to all the neighbors going by and watching all the people. And it was just a lot of fun. And we could hear, when they had concerts and stuff, we could hear music. And then we stayed there for quite a while, and then our neighbors moved out of the area, and they actually asked if we wanted to move in their house, and we'd become their landlords. So we literally moved to the next house over, and we stayed in that neighborhood again. Probably one of the hardest moves we did. It was such a nice area, too. It was a big Italian area. at the time, and just all nice little neighborhoods and stuff. I was walking distance to both my schools, first Prince of Wales, and then when I went to high school, Scott Park was there. Sadly, both those schools are gone now, but they were awesome to be so close to. And then after that, I moved into the apartment in that place because they actually had another apartment on top, but they had so many troubles getting people there that were actually good. There were so many fights and trouble. And then one day I just asked if I could move up there so I could be still close to my parents, but at the same time I'd have a little bit of independence because it had its own entrance, it had its own kitchen. But I liked the neighborhood and I could still stay there. Then I met Mike and I moved out of Hamilton, technically. I technically live in Stony Creek, but when people ask me, I say I live in Hamilton. The truth be told, I'm right literally on the line where Hamilton and Stony Creek cross, and since Stony Creek's kind of in that whole Hamilton area, then everybody just calls it that anyhow. But, yeah, I moved there, and I've been here now for probably about 15 years, 13 years or something like that. And I moved here, and I'm still easy access to get to Hamilton because, you know, there was a while there I didn't go downtown as much because I used to go to downtown every day, every week. My friend Dave and I would go down there and go shopping at Cheapies and check out, you know, Sam the Record Man, check out Dr. Disc, and any of you people who are into music who live in this area, you all know those stores. And just all the little, there was a lot of little used record stores and stuff up and down the lane that changed. We had the Silver Snail here at one point, and then it did kind of suddenly disappear. They were screwing around with Gore Park and stuff, and then when I moved in with Mike, I didn't come downtown as much. Dave and I, you know, still go out to the movies and stuff, but, you know, they were losing a lot of the movie houses down there, like the Odeon and the Highland and the Century and the Tivoli, and the only thing left was Jackson Square, so we still go down there, and hopefully that'll still stay open, because, you know, before there was a lot of places in that area. But I did kind of, you know, disappear from the Hamilton area for a while, and only go downtown once in a while. But as of the last couple of years, I've been going back down there just because I just love it. Now, before I get to my re-love affair with Hamilton, one of the things I absolutely have to talk about is my first exposure to Hamilton was actually just before we moved here in '75. My mother and I came for a visit to visit my grandmother, who lived in an apartment on James Street. It was right near Barton, and she had an apartment, and the building is still there, and I actually showed it to a lady that I went downtown with recently and said, that's my first exposure. And my grandmother didn't get out a lot. She just liked being locked in, watching her TV and all that. And so my mother and I would, you know, visit with her, and then we were there for like 2 weeks. And then after dinner, you know, after we'd do the dishes and stuff, you know, that was it for my, you know, my nanny would just want to watch TV, and that's it. And so my mother and I would constantly go and take a walk down James Street, and you know, I usually get a little bag of pizza chips. I do remember that, and we check out some of the little stores there, and it was, I just remember it was a nice time because it was just me and my mom. My brothers were still back in, I want to say Pembroke is where we moved from. I was young. Give me a break if I don't remember pretty. But anyhow, and the reason I bring that up is because that was my first exposure to James, and one of my first reconnecting with Hamilton is when I went to start going to the Art Crawl, which is a festival on James Street that they have the second Friday of every month. And then in September they have a super crawl. And I remember going there and seeing all the people coming out and supporting this street, and finding all these great little shops that were there. And every time you go, there's new shops that are opening up. And then I started investigating other areas, like Locke Street and Ottawa Street. And just, Bayfront Park and, the things they've been doing to Gage Park have been phenomenal. The downtown area has become absolutely incredible. In fact, I've taken people recently to go see the new farmers market and up to Nations, and some people who haven't been downtown in ages, it's just like their minds have been blown how wonderful and beautiful this is, and that Hamilton is a real work in progress, and I absolutely love that. Me being in the arts with the Staircase Theater and stuff, I've gotten to meet so many new musicians and stuff, and I see they always have these shows, and we have like the Staircase, we have the Pearl Company, we have Hammer Entertainment, we have, Black Box Theater used to be, quite regular, and I'm missing tons of them, but there's so many things, the Hamilton Fringe, and as a community, it's wonderful, and if you're a foodie, there's always some great new restaurants on like King William and James and all over the city that are opening up and trying new things. And even recently, I walked down King Street, which had a lot of abandoned stores, still have a couple, but they're even starting to open up some vintage clothing stores and some little knick-knack stores. And it's not just the old pawn shop or used stuff and all the time. And I've just been really amazed, and I'm always excited to see what the next area that they're going to try to open up, because I love Hamilton so much, and it's just so nice to see this city. And James Street especially has some wonderful little shops that have photos of Hamilton signs, some that are no longer there, and you can buy this for memorabilia. Or they have cutouts of neighborhoods, like maps to show you the neighborhoods and stuff. And so many things, shirts that I love Hamilton, and art is the new steel, and I just absolutely adore it. And I get really upset when people tell me that, I hate Hamilton. It's so dirty. It's so... Well, you know what? All cities have things, and yes, we've had some bad reps, and some of it we can own up to. Others of it, I think, has always been a little bit more fabricated than it is. But anyhow, I get riled up. So riled up when I hear people, like, on Facebook or something saying, I gotta leave this shithole of a town. I need to get out of here. I'm like the first one, like, I'll come help pack. I want you out of here, because I want all that negativity out of here. Because, you are probably a person who doesn't even go out and check out your neighborhoods. You probably don't go out and check out certain areas, or bars, or places, or you don't use the city like you want. So, by all means, go somewhere. Go far away to a little town, or, or something. Big cities. Some people say, I gotta move to Toronto. I like Toronto. It's a nice place to live, I'm sure, but I think it's a nice place to visit, and I wouldn't want to live there. The only reasons I would see anybody wanting to move to Toronto are the fact that, number one, career opportunities. Like if you have a job offer, or you have an opportunity and you live in a small place that you just don't have opportunities, then I could see it. And the only other reason I could see it is if you are going to partake in that stuff that they have, the arts community, the restaurants, the theater, everything like that. Because they are open to all that. But, I know some people who say, I can't wait to move back to Toronto. And I think to myself, just go then. But I don't see why. It's not like you do anything in Hamilton, so why do you want all that opportunity in Toronto? Because you wouldn't do it anyhow, except maybe you have more places to buy video games or something to lock yourself in your apartments and stuff. So I really get freaked out when people tell me I want to leave this. Please do. Because you know what? Hamilton to me is so beautiful that you spewing negativity is not helping it. Because I am friends with people who are falling in love with this place again. And I love that we are starting to see neighborhoods changing. And, you're always going to have your bad areas, but that's in every city. Trust me, Toronto, bigger city than us, lots of bad places as well. Little towns, lots of bad places. It's not a perfect world. But I think Hamilton is coming around to such a great place. I'm so honored to be here. I love seeing how it's developing. I love that I do shows in Hamilton, and I get to promote shows in Hamilton, and I love that I teach improv in Hamilton. I love that I podcast and I can talk about Hamilton. Not only just this segment, I love Hamilton, but I can talk about just about anything. You know, if I want to talk about Art Crawl or me growing up in neighborhoods and stuff. I love Hamilton. Have I said it enough? Recently, I took a really nice friend of mine, Gabriella. She's lived in Hamilton, I want to say her whole life, but I don't know for sure. I can't remember offhand. But I took her to James Street recently, and she hadn't been in ages. And she actually recognized some of the old businesses that are still there. And she was so thankful to me, because I've taken her to other places like Ottawa Street and Locke and stuff. And she told me the other day, she said, you know, I love not only that you're showing me things in Hamilton that she knew they were there because she's been here all her life, but she didn't realize what they're like now. And she said something beautiful to me. She said, it's not that you're just showing me these places, you're showing them to me with your eyes. Like I take her into little stores or little places that she wouldn't think to go in. And she gets to see sides that she might not have seen because she just goes to the places that she needs to be. So she says she hadn't been downtown in a long time, every once in a blue moon, but I've gotten her to go several times, and she's even gone on her own to Nations and the Farmers Market. And that just made me feel so good. And any time I get a chance to let people know, like on my Facebook, I'm always posting, you know, events that are coming up, festivals, shows that I think people might be interested in. You know, it might not be for everyone, but every once in a while I hit one and somebody will say, you know, thank you for posting that because I didn't even know that was even happening. And, you know, it makes me happy that I can do that because I love to promote this city. And I'm not saying the other cities aren't great. I think every city has wonderful things to offer. But I hate when people crap on my city when I know for a fact they don't utilize it or they don't go out and go see shows or go out to places. You know, as I said, I'll be happy to pack you up and move you out if you want to leave. But for the rest of you who have the love affair that I do for Hamilton, I thank you because we need to let people know what's out there because that's our job. I think we should constantly keep talking about the positives of Hamilton because it really is. I believe that's our job. We want this city to have people that are offering things and places to go. And the more positive we talk about it, the more positive energy will be in this city. Anyhow, I've said the word Hamilton enough right now, so I'm going to take a break from my first segment. We're going to go on to a TV show next, one that I absolutely love, one that I once quoted saying, if William Shakespeare wrote television right now in this day and age, this would be the show he wrote. That's coming up right after this break. Welcome back. And I am here to talk about one of my favorite TV shows, a little show called Sons of Anarchy. And it is a show, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it ran for 7 seasons, then it finally went off the air, and that's one thing I love about that is Kurt Sutter, the creator and writer of the show, said that that's all he wanted to do. He had an outline for 7, and he followed it right to a T, where other shows have said, we might only do 5, we only do 6. Then they continued, and sometimes those shows fell right apart. But he stuck with his goal, his mission, and he gave us 7 incredible seasons. Now, I'm going to try to talk about this with not giving out too many spoilers, because this is one of those shows that you just got to watch and be shocked by certain plot twists or characters getting killed, and there's quite a few of them that do through the course of this show. So I'm going to try to be as spoiler-free as possible. Anyhow, the story follows its main character, Jax Teller, and he is the son of one of the founding fathers of Sam Crow, a motorcycle club that has chapters all over America and in Europe as well. And this follows the original group in Redwood. And he basically, this is the life he's always known. And from episode 1 right through the season, he basically starts questioning the lifestyle of being in a motorcycle gang and stuff. I'll be honest with you, I started watching this show because I was a fan of the lead actor, Charlie Hunnam. He's a British actor that I used to watch in the British version of Queer as Folk. That's where he got his start. He was very young. Then he was also on a show I loved by Judd Apatow, which was Undeclared. It was a sitcom that came before Freaks and Geeks. It didn't get quite the love that Freaks and Geeks did, but it's still a great show. And, has his band of Seth Rogen, Ray, I can't remember his name, Barinthal? I can't remember, but it's not important because we're talking about Sons of Anarchy. Anyhow, I was a big fan of his. I followed him over to this, and motorcycle gangs always fascinated me. And I kind of like watching shows of worlds that I'm not a part of, because I think that's what we all look for in shows, something that intrigues us, like, ooh, what would it be like to be in a motorcycle gang or something? And, so that's what really caught me. So I watched it for Charlie Hunnam. I stayed for the motorcycle gang. I loved the fact that I was finally going to see Ron Perlman, who had done Hellboy. He'd done, Beauty and the Beast. He had done all these projects, but he was always in makeup. I was excited that he was finally going to play a role where he's going to be himself. And Katie Sagal, who plays Jax's mother, of course known for Married with Children, I was a little worried. She was the worrying part because of the fact that I saw her so much as Peggy Bundy. I was scared that I'd see that Married with Children character come to life in this. After episode 1, I was halfway through the episode and I was like, no, I don't even remember Peggy like this. This is a totally different character and she's bringing it. And one thing I love about this show is the actors are absolutely all spectacular. They're all realistic. None of them really come off as Hollywood. We see their scars. We see their flaws. They don't try to clean up. They don't try to glamorize this lifestyle. Maybe a little bit, but not really. And I instantly became a fan of Sons of Anarchy. I want to be one of those. I like to be one of those pretentious people, but I did watch this show before it was popular. Because when this first started, it wasn't really that popular. And then it started building with seasons 2 and 3, and it started then it became, merchandise, soundtracks. Everybody had to watch this show. I want to say that I was there at the beginning and fell in love with this show. Now, I did make a controversial statement because I know you Shakespeare fans would be, could be shocked that I'd say that this would be the show he'd write if he was alive right now. But it's not that far-fetched, because Kurt Sutter's been asked this a lot. When he created Sons of Anarchy, did he plan on making it so Shakespearean? Like, it really does follow Hamlet to start with. And then it, even has, moments like King Lear, maybe a little Romeo and Juliet, characters are dying left and right. That's a Shakespearean thing. And Kurt Sutter himself said that, he did have a Shakespearean element to it. He liked it. I love the fact that it does, because of the fact that he deals with, betrayal and loyalty, which is all things Shakespeare dealt with. And I honestly think it's hard not to see the Shakespearean tone, and I think a lot of people have said this show seems very Shakespearean in tone. Like, you can't miss it. Even when you watch the first 2-3 episodes, you're like, wow, this is like Shakespeare. It's a wonderful show. If you can deal with sex, violence, which seems to be in most of the popular shows right now, Game of Thrones, Spartacus, Breaking Bad. All those shows have all that. So this probably won't surprise you. As I said, the cast is phenomenal. The writing is incredible. And even though it deals with motorcycle gangs, yes, there are moments that you could say it promotes motorcycle gangs, but they deal with the dark side so much too that I don't think it glamorizes it any more than, any other show has ever, when dealing with such a dark subject matter. One thing I've always loved about shows like this is you see them committing crimes, you see them shooting guns and killing people. But then you see scenes where they all come together for family events, and you see that they still, at their heart, are a family. And I think that's the thing I love about this show. And because the friendships are all so close, the brotherhood is so strong. And it is so nice to see a show like that. So when the betrayals start happening, you feel the impact on the character of what that would feel like if they would have to deal with that. And you do really get invested in the characters, because they bring it, not only Charlie Hunnam, Katie Seagal, and Ron Perlman, but just the supporting cast as well, Kim Coates and Mark Boone Jr., Maggie Siff. They all come together. Even the guest stars they've had. And what I like is they took real chances with guest stars. They've, had everybody from, Jimmy Smits, who wasn't even just a guest star. He pretty much became a reoccurring character in the season he came in on. Michael Chiklis and Marilyn Manson, Henry Rollins, David Hasselhoff was even in there a little bit. They really took some chances with even little people, big names and things. But, I like that they took those chances. There's a lot of comedy in this show, too. There's moments where you just laugh because they get into ridiculous situations. I love that when I heard Kurt Sutter talk about this, he really didn't want to offend too many motorcycle, because I believe he said he has a lot of friends in the circle, so he would actually talk to motorcycle gangs and families and organizations to see that he wasn't turning it too cartoonish, or would this work, or how would this be dealt with and stuff. And I respect that, because seeing those values and stuff, and how, if you betray them, this is how we're going to punish you. There's an episode where a guy betrays them, and, that's no nonsense. He did a huge betrayal, and they take him into a garage, and basically they have these tattoos on their back that they get. And they basically say, well, you cannot wear that anymore, so you have a choice. You can either get it cut off or burned off. And they leave you to the choice, but neither sounds too pleasant to me. And then other times, the smaller ones, they just darken it with the ink, so you're no longer in the Brotherhood. You're, banished and stuff. But as I said, you mix the drama with the comedy. There's so many heartbreaking moments in this. All I can say is, if you've never watched it, and this is one on your list that you do, and I highly recommend you do, enjoy every moment of it. There are a couple of stories that go a little over the top. I never felt they went too crazy. I know some people didn't like when they went to Ireland, and a lot of the characters went to Ireland for a season, but I had no problem with that. But if you have a favorite character, there is a lot of shocking deaths through the course of every season. And it's kind of fun because I had a character that I absolutely adored that was in positions pretty much every season that I thought, this character's going to die, this character's going to die. And he lasted longer than I thought. And It was actually kind of fun, but there are going to be moments that if you really get caught up in this show, you are absolutely going to be heartbroken. And I know people who are listening to this right now who watch the show probably know some of the ones I mean, because they're not afraid to kill characters off. And what I like about it is I feel sometimes shows kill characters off for the shock of it. But I don't think that way of Sons of Anarchy. Every death that happens on this show seems like it's well planned. It's setting up stories for the future, setting up stories that were in the past. And they never, ever try to gloss over that. If there's a subplot that kind of goes off and you think that they forgot about it, be confident in this writer, he's going to bring it back. Because there were times that I thought, well, they totally forgot that, but comeuppance comes eventually to everyone. So, I highly recommend it. This, of course, wouldn't make me go out and, join a motorcycle gang. It probably, because I can't drive, would probably be the biggest part of it. But, it is very interesting to see the lifestyle. And even though it's obviously played to extreme lengths, it's still a fascinating world to enter. And I don't think we've ever gotten, I think, they've dealt with it in movies like Easy Rider and stuff like that, but I don't think we've ever really gotten into the subculture of that until this show. And now, as I said, I don't think the show tried to glamorize it, because, as I said, every time they do kind of make it look a little glossy, they always remind you, well, there's always this that could happen. But I think there have been people who've taken this to heart because, there are merchandising. You can buy lamps and shirts and just anything with Sons of Anarchy on it, The soundtracks are incredible. They use a lot of rock and they use a lot of remakes of like pop songs that were done with rock. They use a lot of blues. Just phenomenal. Every time I think I've heard like, oh, they can't top that one, another one comes up. I was constantly Googling because I'd have to be like, I need to know what this song is. I'm glad the soundtracks, they released a couple because it's just phenomenal. This isn't obviously a show for everyone. You wouldn't be watching this with your kids unless you're that kind of parent. I do know parents that watch The Walking Dead with their kids. I can't see why, but, but honestly, I would give this a shot. As I said, it's well written. The casting it's just absolutely phenomenal. All the characters look real. They don't look like Hollywood glamorized versions of what motorcycle gangs. Charlie Hunnam is one of the best looking guys he's just a great looking guy. And they dirty him up a lot in this. He gets scraggly beards and stuff. You can still see his beauty. But they never try to make him look like, his hair's flowing in the wind. No, you can tell this is, if you've never met him before, you would believe that he was definitely this character. And all the characters are like that too. They're all very real. And as I said, Katie Seagal was the one I was worried about the most, but she gets this right away, and it's no real surprise. She is a wonderful actress. It's just when she played like Peggy Bundy on Married with Children for so long that you just kind of get lost in that. But luckily she didn't get typecast, because I would honestly say that she just delves into this, and I think now she has two iconic characters under her belt. Some will remember her as Peggy Bundy, but some will remember her as Gemma. And it doesn't hurt that Kurt Sutter wrote this role for her, because Kurt Sutter, the creator of this show, is also, her husband. So he had her right in mind. So, it's wonderful when your husband can give you a solid character. And the fact that this show has never gotten much love from the Emmys, it just blows me away. It should have, because I honestly think it's one of the best shows out there. And now that it's over, it'll be nice to see where they all go and what areas they'll head out to. But, yeah, this is a show I'll definitely rewatch again. And if you have not seen it and think it might be for you but have always been on the fence, go for it. And if you're a Shakespeare fan, give it a shot and see if you see it. Anyhow, that's enough Sons of Anarchy love. We got another segment coming up, but I'm going to take a little bit of break so I can get a drink. And we'll be back soon. Hello, welcome back to Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. And we're here with our final segment of this show, and we're going to be talking about a topic that I don't talk about that often. A couple of weeks ago, I asked people to send in questions for me, because I wanted to do a question and answer period. Answer any question you wanted. I didn't get a lot of responses. And that's okay. Hopefully I get some more, because I really would like to do a Q&A. Any question you want, just send it in to me. It can be serious, it can be crazy, it can be ridiculous, whatever you want. I'll answer anything. And, but I decided for the people that did send me some stuff in, since I don't have enough to do a full segment on it, I would maybe take a couple of the questions and see if I could turn them into segments. And I believe it was Doug Miller that sent me a question that asked if I was actually a sports fan, or if I followed certain sports, or had a favorite team. So I thought I would talk about sports. Now, for some of you really close to me, you know that sports are not really my thing. But that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy sports. This might actually blow some people I know away, but I actually respect people who follow sports. You know, whether, I don't care if it's football you follow, hockey, soccer. I think it's great. I get it. Being a movie fan, I can see my passion for, you know, movies and memorabilias and stuff like that. And sports is similar. It has memorabilia. It has, you know, things. You always want to see your team do well. And I have a lot of respect for that. So, you know, I may roll my eyes or be like, oh, really? Are they going to talk about this? But I actually really kind of think it's cool when people have favorite teams and they're so passionate about what they love. As for sports, my life in sports, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with, as a lot of things in my life I do. Number one, I did follow a few sports. Sports have always been a part of my life in some way. Of course, being Canadian, everybody wonders about hockey. Hockey played a part of my life. I didn't really ever follow it, but when I was younger, it was always on in my house. Having two older brothers than me and a father that enjoyed hockey, I heard lots of hockey. I watched a lot of hockey, just because they were bigger than me and they got, you know, to switch the channels before I got there. And not to mention it was like 3-1. But I remember always like either coloring or drawing or playing with my action figures at the coffee table while everybody was cheering and going nuts for their hockey night in Canada, you know, Saturday night, you know, that music. Even that music, still gives me good memories because I remember just being around with my family and they're all watching. I'd only look up once in a while when when my brothers and my father would cheer. I'd look up to see what was going on. But the only other time I'd really look up is when Peter Puck came on. Other things to do with hockey. I also had a TV in my room. I was, for some reason, I was the youngest, but I had an old black and white TV in my room. And I remember my brothers coming in and, you know, I'd be sleeping and they'd turn on the TV and I'd let them watch. And I fell asleep with, you know, the sound of like that, you know, ice skates hitting the thing and pucks being hit and, you know, just the commentary and stuff. So it actually gives me a nice memory. I also went to some hockey games when I was younger. One of my good friends, Craig Keogh, he used to play hockey, you know, back in the days when they didn't even have a lot of glass up and, you know, people could easily get hit with pucks. It was fun. And his mother would always be, almost getting thrown out because she was always yelling at the refs and stuff. But I loved watching Craig play. He was really good at it. It was number 12, I remember that. And I'd have great times just going to the games. And even when I got older, my nephews, Sean and Jonathan, both played hockey. And a couple times when I visited there, they had games and I could go and we watched them. And that was a lot of fun to be part of that. I did follow wrestling for a little while. Yes, WWF at the time, before it was, the Foundation for Saving Animals and stuff. I was in the days of Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and stuff like that. I did follow it. I thought it was cool. I kind of thought of them as superheroes, so I enjoyed it. I was even a fan to the point of, I remember being in line at the Ancaster Walmart to meet the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. I was a huge fan of his, and I remember getting something signed. I can't remember what, because I was probably too thinking, wow, he's good looking, and I'm standing right in front of him. So yeah, I had a little wrestling phase that I went through, so people are surprised that I recognize a lot of the older names of wrestlers and stuff like that. As far as that goes, when I flick around, I sometimes keep it on, like if the Olympics are on or something. I might put it on a little bit if something interests me. Maybe not golf so much. That kind of really bores me. I don't know if that's probably a game that you should be out there playing. But anyhow, the only other game that I really got into is for a couple of years in the 90s, I became a baseball fan. And some of you will remember this because I became a fairly big fanatic of baseball. And it was all done in my own Devlin kind of way. It wasn't just I loved baseball. It was I kind of forced myself to love baseball. Anyhow, how I got into it was I got a call from my older brother who had some extra tickets. And this was back to the Sky Dome, and we could go see the Blue Jays. Now, I didn't really like baseball at all. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed playing, we used to play a game called Rounders at sports. Before I get to the baseball stuff, I actually really used to love sports. As in playing them. I used to play floor hockey, which I absolutely adored. I actually loved playing murder ball. We used to call it murder ball. I think it became dodgeball. Now it's probably got an even more politically correct name, shoot the ball not so hard at people's legs. It's probably called something like that, ball now. And I used to love that. And I really got into basketball too when we started it. But what happened was I was a chubby kid, and in grades 6, 7, and 8, I actually had not just kids, but I had a teacher who bullied me. Our gym teacher at the time, Mr. Pyatt. I don't think he really liked me, because he'd always used me as an example of not being a good player. I may not have been good at basketball, but I loved playing it, and I really kind of always wanted to play more. But he got me to the point, the kids started calling me Twinkle Toes. I remember Mr. Pyatt would viciously try to get me out in murder ball because he was trying to make a point at how you always have to stay focused, and he just slammed me to the ground. And we're talking back in the days where, if you got hit in the head or the face, it was like, oh, shake it off, shake it off. I also remember one time we had a arm wrestling competition, and we had a triangle, like a pyramid, where the winner was at the top and everybody else was at the bottom. And when he started the pyramid, he put my name on the top and told the kids, I'm going to use Devlin as an example because you're going to watch how quickly he goes down the thing. And it happened. And it got so horrible that I hated gym. And by the time high school came, I did everything I could to avoid going to gym. And this teacher literally bullied me out of not liking sports anymore. Anyhow, I regress. So I did have a passion for playing sports and stuff. Now, if you get me out playing frisbee, or I play bocce balls with my friend Gary Reed, you know, that's sports to me. So, anyhow, back to baseball. So my brother called me up and said, I have some extra tickets. Do you want to come? I wasn't into baseball at all. I had nothing totally against it, but I went for two reasons. Number one, Sky Dome was just fairly new, and I wanted to go see it. And number two, at that time, I desperately wanted to do anything with my brother Ernie, because I'm really close to Paul, my one brother. I have two older brothers. I'm really close to my brother Paul. And I have moments where I'm close to Ernie. Don't get me wrong, I love him to death. Love him to death. But I always tried to find ways to find things he liked. And I know Ernie was a big baseball fan. So I decided I'm going to go and show I like baseball too. And all selfish reasons, because I wanted to be close to my brother. Because we went through a phase, he was gone a couple years in my life. And then he came back, and I remember he lived with us, and we used to play board games all the time. And that's another show, like, that's another thing, playing board games with Ernie, because he was very competitive. And I can hear my family giggling out there right now, because competitive is the nice word. He really likes to win, let's just say. But anyhow, I had some wonderful moments just hanging out with him, and they were gone again, and so I desperately wanted them back, so I became a baseball fan. I was particularly bored when I went to the baseball game. Not that I didn't enjoy the actual game, but, you know, sitting in the Sky Dome, if you don't have really great seats, you're kind of looking, you know, at, you know, just kind of dots running around. And there's nothing wrong with that, but anyhow, I decided to make it interesting. I would try to maybe do everything I could to really get into baseball, so I decided maybe if I pick a favorite player. So there was a lot of cute guys. Yes, I'm shallow. We all know that. If you've listened to the shows, you know that. So I decided, well, I'll pick a cute guy, but I didn't want to just be too shallow. I decided to find one that, you know, maybe seemed nicer. And on that day, I remember the day too, because I got this baseball. Everybody got a free baseball when they came into it. And it's funny, because I'm not a big baseball fan, but this baseball's always in display in my house, because I'm so proud of it, because it reminds me of this time. But anyhow, on that day, they also mentioned that the Blue Jays catcher, Pat Borders, was doing a lot of charity events for children and lots of different things. So Pat was cute, and he also did things for people. So I decided I was going to cheer on Pat Borders. And I actually became a big Pat Borders fan. And it actually got, like, to the point where I literally went out and bought his baseball cards. And I go buy baseball memorabilia. I believe I actually have a Pat Borders comic book somewhere in my cache, or whatever you want to call it. And I literally became a Pat Borders fan. And I thought if I continued getting into baseball, then I could talk to Ernie whenever I go see him in Whitby. I could, like, oh, we can talk baseball. And the weird thing that happened is I picked Pat Borders, and this was eventually led to the year where the Blue Jays won the 1992 World Series. So I watched all that. Now, I didn't watch it in your regular way. I actually, when I was home, I'd put it on the TV, and I'd play music. My friend Dave would watch the game, and I'd watch the game, but I'd be listening to music and playing different songs and stuff. That was my way of getting into it. But I would root on Pat and be all excited when he'd come up. When they went to the World Series, it was amazing, because everybody said, oh, you know, will they ever get there and that. And the year I started watching baseball, they actually got there. What makes it more, you baseball fans probably know this, Pat Borders went on to become the MVP of that game. Of that series, I believe. He was the, you know, most valuable player. And I almost felt like Susan Sarandon, you know, in Bull Durham, where every season she picked a new guy. And she'd sleep with him, and then he'd go on to become a big success, Great movie. If you've never seen Bull Durham, check it out. Kevin Costner, Tim Robbins. But I felt like that, because here I am, this kid who just wanted to spend some time with his big brother, and I just pick Pat Borders out of nowhere. I become this super fan of his, and he winds up not only on the team that wins the World Series, but he's chosen, which I've also heard is very rare for a catcher to do. But he was an incredible hitter as well. See, it's all coming back to me now. Well, I continued to follow this for a couple of years, and Pat stayed in my life, as I said. Somewhere in one of my memorabilia boxes, I've got a whole ton of cards, baseball cards, because I collect them. And I followed him for a while, and he wound up, going into, he got a gold medal in the Olympics for baseball. I want to say the Sydney 2000. And he's one of the few players who actually has an MVP and a gold medal. And, I have a fondness whenever I hear about him. I know he retired and stuff, but I still have a fondness for him because he was somebody that I totally, crushed on. I met him. I forgot to tell you, he actually came to Hamilton, which is very rare. We didn't get a lot of celebrity people coming. Like not celebrities, but like baseball players. And he actually came to this store up on the mountain. And I actually got to meet him and got something autographed. I can't remember if it's my comic book or a card or if I just got a picture. But I actually remember meeting him and I thought, wow, I always thought he was really cute, but he had these amazing, amazing huge arms. And I remember seeing them live and I was just like, oh my God. Because they almost look like, like Thor or something, you don't believe they're real, but when you see them live in person, it's hard to believe that people get that big. So anyhow, this only went for a few years, and I realized that my love for baseball isn't bringing me closer to my brother. It's not like we can't talk, but, sometimes I wish we were a little closer and stuff like that. But I do know that's not just because of me. It's, Ernie's not a sociable person, and when he is, when you find a topic, you can talk to him. Doesn't change how much I love him. And yeah, so that's my baseball phase. I probably went for about 4 years and was a big baseball fan, and some people are shocked when I tell them that. Other people lived it. They knew I was all about Pat Borders, and it was a nice time. I look back at it and I smile. And as I say, every once in a while I hear, Pat Borders is now coaching a team, or he's like a team manager. And I kind of smile knowing that, he's still out there and he's, doing stuff he loves and stuff like that. It blows my mind though too, because it's kind of it's almost like, it was a weird little, like if my life was a TV show, it was like one of those weird episodes where, this character goes out of character and becomes a big baseball fan. A friend of mine even bought me his jersey, and I'd actually wear his jersey. Now, I don't wear sporting stuff at all, but I would literally wear this beautiful Blue Jays with his number and Borders on the back, because I was such a big fan, and when I look on it, I just thought it was great. I don't really follow sports currently now. As I said, sometimes they'll have soccer on and I'll watch, but again, it's mostly shallow. I'll watch for their hot legs, or if I turn hockey on, there's so many good looking hockey players out there. My niece Nicole just loves her Sidney Crosby and all the other good-looking hockey players she enjoys, and I agree with her. And back in the day when you watched hockey, they never took their helmets off that often, but they show a lot of them, on their breaks with the helmets off, and drool-worthy. So anyhow, I'm not against sports whatsoever. As I said, I just, it's sad that I did give up on sports. Because I did enjoy them. I was never really great at them, but I loved, playing floor hockey or stuff like that. And I never got back into it. I basically felt I was bullied, and And sadly, I was bullied by a teacher as well as the kids. And the kids seemed like it was okay, because, hey, I think the kids knew, well, if the the gym teacher is bullying them, then fair game. And you know what? That sounds like the logic you would have as a kid. Anyhow, that is my delving into sports. So I did have a little bit of a sports phase there for a bit. Now that you're all shocked that I was a jock for a little while. Okay, I wouldn't go that far at all. But it was fun talking about this again and all the things that popped in my head. Like, wait a minute, I actually met him. And I used to wear his jersey. Like, I was totally in love with this man for a short period. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. It made for good memories. And I did get to spend some time with my brother. And I cherish all those times that I do. And, yeah, that's it for me today. I would like to say that I'm going to turn off now and go play some sports, but that's probably not going to happen. Though you never know. If it's a nice day, I like whipping the frisbee around. I don't know if that's really sports anymore, but it's an activity. It gets me moving. That's a good thing. And now that you've finished listening to that podcast, you can do the same thing. Get stretching, get there, do whatever you need to do. You have yourselves a great day. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you very, very soon.